Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome to Spectator Diff, a new podcast from the two most underpaid spectators in Overwatch. Probably. My name is Brad. This is Matt over in that panel over there. And we decided to start a podcast to break down professional Overwatch matches because we have opinions and gosh darn it, someone needs to hear them. We'll be focusing largely on Overwatch League and contenders, but who knows what the season will bring. We'll be here every week on Mondays around this time, 12:30 Eastern, to discuss the happenings in Overwatch esports and Overwatch at large. We'll cover any major headlines, break down each a match of the week, hit you with some predictions for the next week, and then we'll get the hell out of here, because we have lives and other things to do. So, you can catch our streams and VODs here on YouTube, and we will be uploading the audio of each episode to a podcast feed as well. So make sure you subscribe to Spectator Diff, both on YouTube and wherever you consume mainline podcasts. Podcast coming, at the end of this week, according to the show notes. Matt, thank you for that.
Yeah, man. Yep.
So, without further ado, we've got some kooky headlines this week, because I was a bad student and didn't read the show notes ahead of time. So, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, happy to. Headline numero uno, no more Overwatch 2 betas. John Spector said it on Twitter this week. We don't get to see Overwatch 2 again until October 4th, so make a paper chain, start your countdown clocks. It is really less than 2 weeks away. TBH, fitting another beta in that 2-month window would probably be a little bit wonky on account of the betas typically lasting 4 weeks, and I don't know, do you give beta access just to roll right into the main game? Most people would say yes, that'd be great, but Team 4 has decided, no, we don't care about you. Play Overwatch 1, you nerds. I know, Brad, you and I talked about this a little bit. I think Dante on Twitter had something to say about this being a pretty massive bummer to folks in the professional scene, if you want to drop some thoughts there.
Yeah, so I will just, I will go off at the point, it doesn't make sense time frame wise for there to be another beta for at least the general consumer. I mean, there's not really a good way to fit this in between now and October. It would certainly be nice. It raises a few other concerns for the actual health of the game at large, but I can't blame them for the decision, and I really can't, I get it. But in regards to the actual pro scene, Dante was particularly adamant about the fact that this is career-ending for some players in certain aspects, because these players do not get to play the second game. They don't get to play Overwatch 2 unless they're actively scrimming. And it's not so much of a big deal for this tournament cycle coming up, but going forward, if these teams don't make the playoffs, they're going to be going for weeks at a time without playing the beta. Or, Overwatch 2 in general. And so it just kind of begs the question, what exactly is Overwatch, or is Blizzard doing with this game? I don't really, I was thinking about this a lot last night, because it's just such a strange thing. It's such a strange decision not to give your pro players just access to even an alpha build in the meantime, because no one's playing ranked right now. No one wants to play. It's a absolute nightmare to play, and everything's so different, the pros might as well not even do it, and most of them aren't, for that matter. But it just begs the question of why they're not providing the players with something more to kind of keep this game going in the interim. I think it shows kind of the disconnect in ideology between what players think the game is and what the Blizzard devs intend the game to be. I am very strongly of the opinion that the Blizzard devs never wanted this to be a competitive game, and they are still operating it like that, even if they have one of the more, one of the bigger esports in the world and, a very, very devoted competitive scene.
Yeah, I think we all know Overwatch is certainly not a top-tier esport, but it's definitely nipping at the heels of being in that top tier, and it's doing so with very little support from the company. So it would definitely be nice, to see Overwatch become the comp game that it could be if Blizzard gave a little bit more of a shit about the competitive scene. But we did get some information from this new beta. We got a new stats blog from the devs, and honestly, it was pretty interesting. If you're into reading about statistics and takeaways, and just dev opinions, which I think that the hands-on devs are the more interesting people to listen to than the Blizzard's communications folks, because I think that they, whether they view the game the same way that we do, I think they view the game in a way that is at least interesting. And there were a lot of stats. I'm not going to go through all of them. The blog is available on the Play Overwatch site if you'd like to read it. But the one thing that I want to point out, what I think is the most interesting stat, is they talked about how often teammates and other heroes died based on what tank is in the comp. Obviously, the big change Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2, you lose your second tank, you lose a lot of heal, you lose a lot of shield, everybody has less CC. So your single tank, in theory, has a lot more to say about the fortuity of your teammates. And what we learned is that if your tank player is playing Sigma, you never die. Sigma shield go burr. Sigma suck go burr. Sigma keep player alive. You know who doesn't keep players alive? Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball doesn't care about you. Wrecking Ball doesn't care about your friends. Wrecking Ball doesn't care about your team. Wrecking Ball only cares about chaos and destruction. And it's similar with other flankers and divers. Wrecking Ball is by far the worst. I am not going to lie to you. I don't know what the... Let's see if I can pull it up. I don't know what the metrics on the sides... Okay, so it's... I was wondering if it's like per 10. These numbers over here on the left of this image that I shared, if it's deaths per 10 or deaths of teammates, and all it says is death rates of heroes when played with specific tanks. So I'm assuming that it's deaths per 10. If you have Wrecking Ball, all of your teammates are going to die with 6.6 on whatever this mystical Blizzard stats scale is. And there's a pretty big difference between Ball and Monkey. Monkey, you're looking at 6.3. And then as you start to move down, it slows off pretty largely. The big surprise from this stats block is that Junker Queen, with no shield and no damage reduction, is keeping her teammates alive a lot longer than everybody else. Junker Queen is second only to Sigma in teammate survivability, which they note in this stats blog, what their takeaway basically being Commanding Shout is too strong, which we've all known this whole time. Commanding Shout is busted. So, a lot of that is being reduced in October. We think, we don't know. There's no second beta, or there's no third beta. We don't get to find out. But Brad, I don't know if you looked at these stats at all. I'm interested to hear your takeaway on this tank lineup, notably Orisa left out of this graph, but I believe I read that she goes just between Diva and Doom.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is, well, first of all, it's important to note that these numbers are taken from the entire player base, not just the pros, not just the amateurs. It's the entire player base as a whole. So obviously there will be some fluctuation based on elo in that respect. None of this is particularly surprising to me. I mean, Wrecking Ball is it is effectively like having one less tank, especially when you don't have an overly coordinated team. He can get things done. We know this. A good Wrecking Ball player with good mechanics can carry a team, but the fact remains that he will be kind of out of the fight a lot of the time. He's not going to be frontlining as heavily as Sigma or Junker Queen. I think it's interesting that you have sort of Zarya, Reinhardt, Diva, and Doom all kind of within a very small percentage of one another in the center there. And actually a stronger showing from Reinhardt than I think any of us were really expecting, given the fact that he kind of evaporates against certain team comps. I don't really know. I didn't see too much Reinhardt play in the beta myself. When I did see him, it was briefly because very easy to overwhelm him. But I mean, again, this is across all elos, so personal experience may vary. We knew Sigma was kind of broken. Sigma's going to continue to be kind of broken going forward. And then you hit the nail on the head. Junker Queen's Commanding Shout is by far her strongest ability when paired with an intelligent team. She's another character that does scale with ability and with coordination, and scales exponentially, I might add. Like, that's not she's one of those heroes that just does a lot, and is kind of like the very definition of the feared power creep that the Overwatch community rants and raves about on a regular basis. But they've already tuned her down a little bit for this upcoming stage. Does that mean we're gonna see Junker Goats? Probably at least a little bit still. I think she'd do just fine with Commanding Shout doing speed only or healing only. Both is extensive. I think the trade-off of one or the other is just fine, and go back to the same radius that it was before. I think that's a totally fair trade-off, and would probably bring her just fine in line, honestly. I don't think it would take her out of the running at all, and I don't think it would change too much, but it would at least make her a little more balanced. But overall, I mean, yeah, these all make sense to me. Arisa being left out, I think it's just because she's been changed too much. I don't think they've been able to have been able to get enough data from her, because they've just been tweaking left and right, and she hasn't had a time to really gather solid data. Or playtime, for that matter. Like, everybody's been playing Junker Queen.
For sure. I mean, there is a hero weighted usage rate time in this stats blog as well. And I mean, Junker Queen is miles above everybody else. The only other hero that even comes close is Sojourn, and Arisa is near the bottom.
Which makes sense. I mean, that makes sense. Everybody wants to play the new heroes. Like I said, this is all a beta, so it's hard to judge anything solidly off of these numbers. They're good, they're fun little tidbits of statistics, but by and large, everything's going to be weighted kind of unfairly, because everybody's trying the new stuff to see what's different. Like that, everyone wants the fun new gimmicks, and Arisa just doesn't quite do it, and you know.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that's left out of this statistic is team comp, right? Because obviously with Overwatch 2 only having one tank, who your tank player plays has a lot more influence on who your supports pick, or at least it should. I mean, obviously this is a beta, it's quick play, people play whatever they want, and that doesn't matter. But if you're looking at a team comp based around a Wrecking Ball that's playing a lot of poke with like maybe a Zen Ana, and then you've got another team running Junker Goats with the double main support, and you've got like Queen Brig Bap, then of course your team's gonna die way less than if you're playing a poke comp. I mean, that's just like the whole point. It's like the zombie comp from last season, that the like Sombra Tracer Goats that they were running near the end of last Overwatch League season. Your team just never dies. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter what tank is playing, the team never dies. So I think that that's kind of left out here. My big takeaway, and you know, I'm biased, I'm a Roadhog main, so but I do think it's interesting that Hog's placement is up near the divers as far as team survivability goes, because I am under the impression, what I'm taking away from what the devs are saying and you know, different reviews and stuff, is that Blizzard wants Roadhog to play the way people are playing Junker Queen. They want him to be a frontline damage sponge. But for, you know, 55 years of Overwatch 1, Roadhog has basically been a flanker. And so I think that while these numbers are really interesting, like you said, this is only a beta, everybody wants to play with the new thing. After folks are playing on Overwatch 2 5v5 for 6 months to a year, I think we're going to see a lot of play style of some of these tanks change. I think that Roadhog is going to be more of the big dumb idiot in the front line kind of play. I think you're going to see a lot more Arisa Goats once people get things locked down. So I think there's a lot of shifting to be had here. But I mean, I do think these stats are interesting. I think one of the coolest takeaways was that the win rates console versus PC from hero to hero are very close together.
Yeah.
There is about a 3% difference up and down of heroes at the top and bottom. And, it's unsurprising. Your high accuracy, high tech, like high mobility characters are harder to play on console, and thus their win rate is lower. Where your less aim, higher ammo, less mobility heroes are easier to win with on console. There's not much surprising there, but it is definitely cool to see that at least console to PC, the win rates are pretty similar.
Do they say, I can't remember, do they say if that's with like mixed, is that in the mixed pool or is that the two separate pools? Do you know?
I don't know, but I believe that it was... Yeah, okay. Here's a table of unmirrored win rate differences throughout the entire beta, split by PC versus console. I am assuming that it is separate pools and not cross-platform play.
Considering it's the beta, that's probably accurate. I can't imagine that they're doing too much with the... Considering they just gave access to consoles, they probably have kept it split. So that's in that case, it's not particularly surprising that the win rates are similar. Obviously you are going to have fluctuation based on like the really mechanical heroes. Definitely. Like you just can't, there's no way around that. Even with console aim assist, there's no way around that. But it's not particularly surprising. It's nice to see. It speaks to the overall balance of the game more than anything else, which, I mean, even with broken heroes, there's always going to be something that's broken. It's impossible with 34 heroes in a game now. It's impossible to perfectly balance anything, especially across, all elos for God's sake. Like it's nice. It speaks to the balance of the game that the win rates can at least be that similar. And it's still useful data nonetheless. It is still the beta, and I fully suspect that at least half of the heroes themselves are going to get minor tweaks, if not full-on reworks to some degree over the next 2 months even. I don't think Overwatch 2's launch is going to look anything like, well, I don't think it's going to look anything like the beta that we just saw. I think there's going to be way more changes that we haven't even seen yet. In the first like 2 weeks to a month, they're going to be really chaotic. I hope that's the case, because that means Blizzard will have done more things. But yeah, I think overall, like you're right. It is good to see that that both PC and console can have similar performance. I'd be curious to see how the numbers stacked up in the in mixed or crossplay. Be very curious to see how those numbers stack up, but we'll have to wait until that's actually available.
Yeah, for sure. I agree on all counts, and we have Kanazaka Fox Girl support is coming in theory around launch too, so that'll shake things up. But hey, speaking of games that are live and we're actually allowed to play, Overwatch 1 has an event coming up.
Oh yeah.
You want skins? You nerds, you get skins. Overwatch Anniversary Remix Volume 3 starts tomorrow at day of recording, August 9th. Runs August 9th through August 30th. Hey, use your tokens. Those are going away. Use your freaking tokens. Don't be like me at Remix Anniversary 2 and miss the last day to use all your tokens. Use them this time because I really do not expect Overwatch to do another... The vaults are open, buy whatever you want between September 1st and August 4th. And I think whatever tokens you have coming October 4th when Overwatch 2 releases are going to be like the Aladdin's Castle tickets I have for the arcade that closed in our hometown when I was 12. So I will never get a big stuffed bear, and you will never get the Pink Mercy skin if you don't use your tokens by the end of August.
Yeah, all you tons of token Tonys need to stop hoarding them like Scrooge McDuck and get out there and get you that good Catgirl Somber skin and anything else, and the Beach Torb skin, the GOAT of all time, the best skin that Overwatch has ever created. Get out there.
I don't know. Grillmaster 76
also
is pretty good too.
Also very good. But yeah, I mean, remember the game is monetizing, so this is like the last time to get you like normal cosmetics for the low cost of playing the game.
Yep. How many tokens do you have right now?
God, I have no idea. I have no idea. I on Switch, I've got so many. On PC, not as many actually. I'm gonna have to. Damn it! I'm gonna have to play Overwatch 1 a bunch.
You're gonna have to grind.
I have to grind Overwatch 1. I'm sad.
Sad days. I have like 17K. I'm the Jeff Bezos of tokens.
Oh God. It's you know, after you get so many, like there's only like a handful on PC that I want at this point. On Xbox, I don't even know how many I have. Cause I'm a loser who has 3 different licenses to the game.
If there is one thing that most Overwatch community members have in common, it's we've all bought the game more times than we care to admit for a game that's about to be free. And speaking of price, you might have heard the news over the last week that Blizzard released a price survey. Basically, like, if we charge this much for skins, will you buy them? And the going skin price in this survey was $45. $45 for a skin in Overwatch, which, first off, Blizzard, you can suck my hairy asshole. I will never pay you I will never pay you the cost of a video game for a cosmetic, you dweebs. It will never happen. Second off, Blizzard also came out and said after that survey that, like, hey, that was all based on random pricing. Like, that was a survey structure that had nothing to do with this particular game. So we aren't guaranteeing that the sticker price will be $45. However, if enough people say we'll buy these skins at $45, they're going to charge us $45 for skins, and I'm going to be mad.
Okay, so hear me out on this. Everybody started. I heard about this survey, and the way I heard about it was because YouTube recommended all kinds of videos of people freaking out about this. When the going rate for like normal cosmetics and just about any live service game right now is in the $10 to $15 margin. 45 obviously is astronomical, and it's very likely that would be reserved for things like epic, legendary, whatever, crazy, like ultra customizable nonsense. Because I mean, you look at Apex Legends, the heirloom system, and now the heirloom skins, which are like you play things and complete challenges to level up the skin, and it does crazier things and gives you all kinds of extra stuff. Like, those are $500. If you buy them outright, those are $500. So this whole like $45 for like a cosmetic is it a lot? Yeah, but it could be worse. If Blizzard actually wants to make money off of this, like, they're gonna keep the average consumer price for a cosmetic probably in the $10 to $15 range for like the epic legendary stuff, and then heirloom. That's the word. Heirloom, like, cosmetics will be extremely expensive in some other direction, even farther beyond $45. I would wager. That's kind of commonplace across the free-to-play spectrum, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it is what it is, because like if the game itself is free to play, you don't need to buy the skin. Like, right. It might be really fucking cool, and if it's really fucking cool, if you got the money, use the money. Like, if it's something, like, if that is your hero, that is the one you're gonna play the most. You know that you're gonna be the one. Like, it's gonna be unique at that point because it's gonna be yours, and like very few people will have done that. So like, there's the uniqueness to it. Like, I'm not defending filthy capitalism towards this. I'm just saying, like, in the grand scheme of things, under this service model, it's fine. Like, for them to actually make money off of this and profit, it has to be more reasonable than that. Because sure, people will buy it at that price. Plenty of people will, but a lot more people are gonna buy the skin if it's $10 to $15. And at that point, I mean, again, am I thrilled to be microtransactioned into the ground? No, but it's not pay to win. It'll never be pay to win until Overwatch goes mobile. And at that point, I'm not playing the game. So, like,
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, we're not.
What is this, Raid Shadow Legends?
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's, you know, it is what it is. People are gonna find something to complain about no matter what they do with this system. Overwatch fans have had it too good for too long when it comes to the free-to-play model not reaching its ugly fingernails into the game system. And now that we're here, well, you better get used to it, because it's here to stay, and it's here to stay across pretty much every other live service game, in for better or for worse. So
yeah, so hey, that said, use your tokens by August 30th and keep your eyes peeled for the Spectator Diff Patreon so that I can write Overwatch skins off on my taxes.
There you go.
The last thing we have to talk about this will transition us into Overwatch League news. Not a lot of roster changes this week. However, Houston Outlaws, sources say the number 4 team in NA, is looking to part ways with Pelican, Iris, and Piggy. I will remind you that Pelican was the Rookie of the Year last year. Piggy has been on Houston since 2020. Iris and Pelican joined Houston after they were in Atlanta last year. The same sources report that Pelican and Piggy, they want to move them together as a package deal, not as individuals. And this move is apparently being spurred on by Dante requesting to move off of the tank role and come back to DPS. Now, the official word is that no teams have given any interest to Houston in buying these 3 players, so they are still playing for Houston right now. Also, I mean, I'm working on pulling up Outlaws roster, so I'm vamping. Also, I mean, like, Merritt and Pelican have looked really good on DPS. I'll call it what it is. Dante, even if he's bored, looks really good on Doomfist. Like, this feels like Houston really shooting themselves in the foot. Brad, your thoughts?
So I'm gonna start by asking a question. What do you know what the source was for this?
No, it's been reported on Dextero. It's been reported on .esports.
Okay.
And all of them say sources said. So that's all we have.
Mysterious. I love it. A little bit of mystery on this spicy take. So they don't want to win if this is true. They have no intention of winning if this is true. It also does signal to me that that Dante's not necessarily going to be the Junker Queen player that we were kind of speculating on. If maybe for the upcoming stage he will be, because they're gonna need someone to do it, and who knows where he falls in the lineup with Piggy in that respect. But it does signal to me that he has absolutely no interest in playing, you know, I mean, he doesn't want to be a flex tank. He was a Doomfist player because he was a Doomfist DPS player, and they didn't want to spend the time to teach the mechanics to Piggy, effectively. Or rather, I guess Piggy didn't want to take the time to learn the mechanics in a competent way, which is understandable because Doom has a hell of a curve. So, I mean, if this has any weight to it, oh my god, I don't know what they're thinking. It makes exactly no sense, because Pelican is 90% of their damage output at this point. Piggy, for better or for worse, has been fine. He does okay. He gets diffed a fair amount, but he's looked better. He does his job. Period. He does his job. I will say, if I'm DPay and I see that they're trying to move Pelican and Piggy, I'm looking to press. I'm like spamming the buy now button on eBay right now, and just like,
yeah, dude,
because that's, you want to take Vancouver to the next level. That's like the easiest package to pick up. I know they just brought in King, but still, like, I'd do it, like, but
yeah, man. I mean, if you have the money to pick these players up, and you're, like a Vancouver, maybe a Paris, like, I guess you're interested, but I think the reality is that, like, So you're looking to send a tank and a DPS player off as a package duo. So right there, you've got to find a team that is interested in opening up a slot on their tank roster and on their DPS roster. And they're wanting to open up for a tank that does not, or excuse me, that hasn't played tank basically all season. What I'm really confused about is if Dante moves to DPS and Houston dumps Piggy, who plays tank? I mean, do you pick somebody up? Like, do you try and find somebody? Do you shift somebody over? Like, what is the... If your goal is to move Dante to DPS, what is the end game with dropping your other tank?
So this definitely, I mean, this is not happening this stage. There's no way. This is at the earliest, this is next stage. I would be willing to bet that if this has merit, if this has weight, it will not happen until the postseason, because trying to make this switch this close to the Countdown Cup and Grand Finals makes no sense. It's effectively suicide for the team. Now, does not changing versus changing their roster this late in the season give them even like top 10? I mean, they're going to be top 10. Does it give them a chance to win the whole thing? Probably not. There are very few scenarios in my mind where Houston comes out of this season higher than, higher than top 4. Like, I don't see them in the grand finals, not with the showing that they gave in the past 2 tournaments, and not with their just general inconsistency throughout the season. Their entire comp right now is built around Dante. Like, they have the one thing. The one thing is the Doomfist dive. That's it. It looks good like 70% of the time, and then the other 30% it doesn't work because they get countered. Piggy, like I said, has been looking better, but the team hasn't been built around his comps, so like they're still all over the place. So like there is some logic to like saying, like let's restructure and have, like, they'd have to get a new tank, like straight up, but then they'd also need to get another DPS player. Iris, I'm not like, I'm kind of 50-50 on the Iris choice, honestly. That he's not the problem. None of what he does is the problem. I suspect he's only in that whole conversation because of contractual and financial things. I would wager. But like, no matter what, if this conversation is as is, like, they have to have their eyes on another tank. That's the non-negotiable in this whole conversation.
Right. Yeah, and to kind of wrap us up here, I think if you have a player in Dante who really wants to move back to DPS, but has really shined in the tank role, and your DPS line is good, which it is. I mean, Pelican and Merit are nothing to scoff at. Like, they are good DPS players. I think you either put Dante in third chair and say, wait it out, kid, or send Dante to another team where he gets to play DPS. I mean, I know he's been on Houston since 2018. I know you don't want to lose those legacy players, but like, if your goal is to please one dude, why do you try to ship off 3 people? And I don't know, like, maybe Iris, Piggy, and Pelican don't want to be in Houston. Maybe they're looking to move. Maybe they want to get back to Korea. I don't know, but everything about this seems silly. Everything about this seems like not the way that I would go about these changes. And I kind of looked through the player list. I agree with you. I think Vancouver is really the only NA team that has a reason to be interested in these players. But yeah, I can't imagine this trade happening by the end of the year.
I really don't see it. It would kill the team. There's almost no chance that, like, their coach isn't an idiot. Like, there's no way that they actually do this before the end of the season. I really look at it more as like this whole season is the Overwatch 2 experiment, and we're finding out players, especially the veteran players, are finding out if they want to continue in the league under the new format, because it is dramatically different. The feel of the game, and how it plays, and the roles are now dramatically different than they were before. And I do think that we are going to see, aside from Houston, I do think we're going to see another like mass exodus of veteran players at the end of this season, which is going to open up a lot of contract opportunities for contenders players. But all of this could be coming off of the backs of just like little talk within the team of like maybe some of the like the vets don't want to be doing this anymore. Maybe we need to go a different direction with the team, because what we're doing can't be this one-sided, especially if they're rebalancing things left and right. They really need like the flexibility. The big thing right now is having a hyperflex tank if you only have one tank, because you need to have multiple looks. Like it's
right.
If you can't afford to have more than one tank player, you need someone who can play just about everything at a high level, and then you have to have a lot of flex on your team to be able to navigate those comps. And it, for better or for worse, ends up like it's just being the case with a lot of teams where you got players playing multiple roles and multiple, obviously multiple heroes, but flipping back and forth between different roles. So I don't know. I don't know how much weight this stuff holds. It's a very spicy headline at the very least. We'll see. We'll just have to see. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I am too. But it's time to move on. So we do not have a game of the week this week because Owl starts this upcoming week. And hey, Contenders managed to go 7 full days without a labor strike. And in Contenders world, that's not nothing. So in lieu of a game of the week, it's time for some Preds, baby.
Yep, and I'm going to use this time to fill out my pick'ems because I am a multitasker.
You sure are, Brad.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's see what we got. We got to do from each region to advance to the Summer Showdown. NA. Are we going to kid ourselves? It's going to be Shocking Glads. Like,
yeah, there's no. Why would you ever pick anything different than it's free points? And
then East region. What do we think here? I originally was thinking Dynasty and Spark. I think Dynasty, despite their bad showing in mid season, are still going to be good here. But
yeah, I was going to go Shanghai Philly, but I think that realistically, Shanghai Philly, Seoul, Hangzhou are probably the top 4 teams in APAC. So there you go.
Still snorting that Philly hopium, I see.
Yeah, man. Listen, like, I don't hope Philly wins. I just know Philly gets into everything. Like, I don't have any faith in them doing well, but I do have faith in them making a tournament. That tracks to me. We have 5 games to focus on here, so you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, let's just
go for it.
Let's go through each one individually, and then we'll talk about the ones that are actually worth talking about. Because I don't fully expect to have a lot to say about all of these, but there are a few looking at this list for the coming week that I actually do have some thoughts on. So let's start off with what will basically be the rematch of, I guess, the season now. London Spitfire versus the Mayhem. Who do you think?
I take London. 3-1.
3-1.
Yep.
Oh, I think I'm gonna give it to London as well. This is gonna be I think the hardest one to predict, because it's gonna depend on how Hottie adapts to the Junker Queen. I don't think there is any way around Junker Queen being at least in part of the meta in the coming stage. I'm gonna say they get it in 3. I'm gonna fuck it, 3-1. I will.
There you go.
I'm gonna give him 1. I think there's a chance that they could overperform. It's also entirely dependent on Hottie at this point. But we'll optimistically say 3-1 because we want to talk about Hopium. I haven't come down from my London Spitfire high, so
Nah.
Oh.
I foresee Hottie doing well on Junker Queen if he picks it up. I really do. I mean, I think the way that he's been playing Rhine is not that dissimilar to the way that Junker Queen plays in the GOATS comp. I mean, and like they also have a really good back line to play a double main support. You know, like they have a really good Lucio in I'm pulling up their roster now because I can't remember anything. They have
Admiral.
a really good Lucio in Admiral. And like, yeah, I mean, Landon is okay, and maybe we see more of Boneback, but like I think this double main support, you're gonna see Admiral on Lucio, you're gonna see Landon on BAP, you're gonna see Hottie on J Queen, and then Sparker, Shax, and Backbone will do things.
It is actually gonna be largely dependent on how their supports handle the Junker Queen goats. Like I kind of agree with you, but I also am not sure. I have seen there have been moments of weakness, especially when they're up against mirror comps in their backline. And you know, I think they have the range to get them through the majority of the NA teams, but they're gonna hit a wall at a certain point where if they can't compensate one direction or the other, it's just they're gonna have a threshold that they just can't cross, and it's probably gonna be the same threshold from the last stage if the teams don't fluctuate too much in terms of their rankings and their overall like ability levels. I mean, we are, like I said, this first week is going to be the tried and true week. We're going to find out exactly how much the meta changes and how much these teams have adapted to it. I don't know. I think that's all that there really is to say about them, but go ahead.
For sure. I think on the flip side of that matchup, like, you know, talking about a meta that looks like double main support, like, I don't have a lot of faith in Surmajed and RuPaul. Sorry. RuPaul's looked really good. And Onimo has looked okay. Surmajed has looked bad. Their roster says they have someone named Kareev on support. I have no idea who that is. I've never seen him.
Oh, bud. Oh, bud.
Yeah. So I just don't really expect Florida to look that good. We broke down that London-Florida matchup in the first episode of Spectator Diff, and I don't feel like Florida ran away with that. I think London got nervous and Florida played well. I expect London to be less nervous and Florida to play worse. And that's pretty much that.
That's fair. And I will go so far to say Kareev has moved mostly to a coaching role.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but was and still is listed as a player, but he has moved mostly to coaching as of I think this season, but
right on.
Anyway, I will, because I didn't talk much about Florida because I like London, and that's just, you know,
same.
Bad spectator. But I you know, I feel like there is a scenario here where London really pops off or not London. Brain go away. There is a scenario here where Florida really does pop off, and it really comes down to their DPS. Like if XE just decides that they're not going to lose the game, I don't think there's much that London can do about it. Because I do think that XE is a little bit better. Not a little bit. He's better than Sparker.
He's a lot.
He's better than Sparker. Yeah. Like, I don't know if we'll see much Boneback. I think we'll see a lot more Backbone. I don't know. It depends. We'll see a little bit of it because they're gonna need Zen at some point, and they don't really have a Zen player otherwise. And honestly, if Hottie can pick up the the Zarya, there's a good chance that like they do better. But I started talking about Mayhem, and I went back to London.
Oh no! I know it's hard. If I didn't have the roster,
Somebody stop me before. Just let's next match.
Yeah, let's move on.
Outlaws Excelsior. I think Excelsior's gonna get booty bopped. I'm calling this 3-0.
Yeah, that seems fair. I mean, unless Outlaws dumps half their roster this week.
Honestly, I think even if they dump half their roster and they still show up with 4 players, they're gonna win. But like that's mean. But like I don't think Excelsior's really gonna show up much. I don't like what they have going on much right now. I don't think there's a scenario where they beat the Outlaws, even if the Outlaws outlaw it up.
Yeah, no, I agree. Outlaws always looks good at the beginning of the stage too.
That's very true. And, while everybody else is figuring it out, their brand of chaos really shines in those first few weeks.
Sure does. Jake's like, everybody play your mains, and then they win a game or two. Also, like, I don't know, man. Call me a hater. New York doesn't have Jonak anymore, and like, what is New York without Jonak? So, yeah, there we go. That's my take.
Easy enough. This is another at least worthy one. Gladiators Fuel. I'm thinking Glad's 3-1.
Yeah, so I agree that Glad's wins. I have no doubt in my mind that Glad's win that game. What's really interesting to me is that I've been listening to a lot of people on Twitch this week say that they feel like Dallas is gonna be really good on Queen Goats, and that they expect Dallas to pick up Junker Queen and play it well. I don't know how I feel about that, and I'm interested how you feel about it.
Were these sources wearing shirts that said not a Dallas fan? Because I don't believe that the Dallas fan base would go online and be like, oh yeah, Dallas is totally gonna pick this up, and I don't believe that they wouldn't do that, actually, is what I meant to say. So I feel like it's just a bunch of I think it's 3 Dallas fans in an oversized not a Dallas fan trench coat. That is what I think the source is. I will say I'm now that I think about this more, I'm going to give Dallas 2. I'm gonna give them 2 for 2 reasons. I think the Gladiators always look worse at the beginning of a stage. They try way more experimental crap and get really sloppy. And I will maintain that I think Dallas will look okay in this match, but I don't think they're gonna win. I'll call it a 5-map banger, only because it's the first map or the first match of the week.
Yeah, I agree. I could honestly see this being a reverse sweep for LA. I could see LA coming out doing some silly shit and Dallas picking up 2 maps, and then Kevster being like, okay, that's enough. You're done. And then LA winning out. But yeah, I mean, I think LA wins this game. I think it's more just how many maps does Dallas get.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I'm gonna save these predictions before the window. I've learned from my mistakes. Atlanta, Boston. Are we gonna sit here and pretend that Boston's gonna win this?
No.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
We're not. We're super not. I don't understand the Atlanta Reign. I don't understand the Atlanta Reign and whether they win or lose. However, I understand the Boston Uprising, and the Boston Uprising are not very good. So, I could see them maybe picking up a map, but that's it.
I'm gonna say here's what I'm gonna say. This is gonna go a deeper prediction. I'm gonna give them a map. It's gonna be map 3. They're gonna win map 3, and then in map 4, as the momentum starts to shift, they're gonna C9.
Okay, yeah,
100%. That is my certified Spectator Diff prediction of the week.
Yeah. Let's see here.
It's on the internet now, and I in a week when we're back here talking about that game, I will recant it.
We're gonna call this bonus predictions.
Okay.
And we'll say Boston loses on a C9.
Great. Love it.
Great.
All right. So that gives us Reign 3-1. And now, let me flip my hat around for this. San Francisco versus the Justice.
That's why I wore red.
Yeah.
That's why I wore red today, Brad. because the Justice are my team.
Okay.
The Justice are my team, and I'm ready to talk about them losing.
Go ahead. I'm just gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go on this one. And
Shock 3-1. Shock 3-1, no doubt in my mind. There is no doubt in my mind that Justice picks up a map on Shock. It's probably the first map because Decay will come out swinging, Happy will pop off,
and Shock can't win control.
Shock can't win control. It'll either be control or push. I'm not 100% sure it's going to be control because, to be frank, Washington also can't win control. So that's going to be a clown fiesta. Is there an opportunity for Washington to win this game? Yes, there super is. Do I think it's going to happen? No, absolutely not. I super don't believe it's going to happen. Could it be possible that like Washington picks up control, Washington wins push, Washington wins control again? Sure. I mean, it's certainly possible, but my expectations are really low. Shock is too good. Yeah. We did rankings last week. Washington has no business beating Shock. I do really think they pick up a map though, because Shock will come in sleepy, thinking that it's just the Washington Justice, and they will forget that they are also playing Decay, and then Decay will get tilted, or Pre will bench Decay, and then it'll be a 3-0. I don't know what's worse, but yeah, Shock 3-1.
I'm going back and forth so heavily on this being either a complete blowout or a 5-mapper. Because
you think Shock gets swept by Washington, don't you, Brad?
No, I still think Shock win this, but I think they dick around just enough to give them 2 maps, and I think they dick around just enough to give them the first 2 maps, and it's a reverse sweep.
I like that.
I have just this awful gut feeling that like even though they should win this 3-0, like should absolutely win this 3-0, like not even remotely close. There's just a scenario where this being the first match of the stage for them, that they fool around just enough to give up 2 maps, and I'm gonna hate myself for it. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna call it 3-2. I'm gonna call it 3-2 for Shock. I will say that they reverse sweep them, and just like, yeah, that's against my better judgment, that's what I'm gonna go with. As a Shock fan, I've seen it way too many times. I know this story. They're gonna play Sam the first 2 maps. Sam's gonna feed the first 2 maps. They're gonna play Mikey the first 2 maps. Mikey's gonna do fine, but they're gonna stagger really, really badly, and it's gonna be a just dead on cooldown kind of situation for a little while. And that feels right. That feels right.
I did add to our bonus predictions. So your bonus prediction was that Boston loses on a C9. My bonus prediction is that Decay deadlifts a map against Shock.
That's probably fair. That's a fair assessment, I would say. Even if none of the actual scores play out the way we predict, there is a decent chance that Decay is just the X factor for Washington at some point in the match, no matter whether or not they win or lose. So that's totally reasonable.
For sure. All right, moving on here. So the next match on your screen here is Toronto Defiant, Vancouver Titans. I have another focus match coming up on the Sunday of this weekend.
Both Vancouver.
But yeah, I think this is the weekend Vancouver gets a win. They play Toronto and they play Paris. How many wins does the Vancouver Titans get, Brad?
1, and it's not against the Defiant.
Fair.
I optimistically 1, and it's not against the Defiant. I want them to get a map, I want them to get a win so badly. I want them to overcome the nonsense that has led them to this point so badly. I want to see Deepace start to really take this team to another level so badly. Do I think it's going to be the Defiant? No. There's a world where that happens. There's definitely a world where that happens. But even the optimist in me doesn't think it's going to be Toronto. Especially with as good as Toronto was looking towards the end of the last stage, I can't see it. It's hard for me to imagine. I would say Toronto wins, so we're gonna give them the 3. This is the part that I'm not sure on. I could see them winning 2 maps. I could see them winning 2 maps in this. And maybe that's where I leave my optimistic take. Maybe this is another 5-banger. Yeah, I'll give them 2. I'll give them 2 because they've been in that position before. They've been in the position to like beat a team that they were not favored against, and they've taken it, like they've taken 2 maps from them. So I'll give them the 2 here because Toronto's not so good, especially going into a new stage that it's impossible.
Yeah, I think that's really fair, and I 100% agree that that is all possible. I think that this game is a real toss-up. I think both the Vancouver games are a real toss-up, because to be frank, we have no idea what Vancouver looks like. This is effectively, in my mind, a new season for the Vancouver Titans
100%.
coming into this phase. I mean, we have no idea. I think Toronto blanks Vancouver, and then Vancouver beats Paris. But I think that Toronto is playing with a team that has played together. Hotba and Muse are good tanks. I could see Toronto playing Queen Goats. Hisu and Although have looked really good in Toronto words. I mean, Toronto never looks really good, but Hisu and Although have looked pretty good. So I think that Toronto comes out swinging and blanks Vancouver, and then I think Vancouver goes 3-1 against Paris. That's how I see this weekend going for the Vancouver Titans.
That's reasonable. Since we're talking about Vancouver just in general, I know it's a Sunday game, but I actually think I will agree. I think Titans do. I really do think the Titans beat Paris. And that is their best shot at a win and their first win of the season. Paris has not been looking good. They had like a moment of clarity when their roster changed, and since then it's just been downhill for the most part. I think Dipe is the better coach, and I think Paris has a lot of just internal demons to work out that they haven't figured out yet. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even think that's gonna be a 5-banger. I'm gonna say 3-1. Titans on that one. I think they're gonna be reeling a bit from their loss to the Defiant, and then they're gonna take that and like ram jam a win that was unexpected out of it. So I think that's where we go.
Yeah, I had so much faith in Paris in the first phase. I thought that Wub looked really good. I thought Dove looked really good. I always like watching Don and Khan play together. I really thought Paris was gonna like put something up this year, and they have just not. So I expect new Vancouver 2022-ver, if you will. I won't, but go on. To be better than the Paris Eternal this weekend, but yeah, I don't think they get past Toronto.
Okay. I think that's totally reasonable. So we'll move on. Spitty versus Uprising. There's
London for sure, dude.
Yep. Does Boston get a map?
A map. I would give Boston a map. I want Boston to be good, man. Like, I feel about Boston kind of the same way that I feel about London. And if I'm being really honest about it, it's just because I like Crimzo. I really like Crimzo. And I want Crimzo to have the opportunity to win games. So, like, I think they could get a map. They're not going to beat London. There's no way they beat London. Even if London comes out and runs 4 maps of Reinhardt Rush, Boston doesn't beat London.
I think I'm wondering if all of this hopium stems from the fact that there's just such a disparity in the teams in North America because there's so goddamn many of them. I don't know. I think Boston could probably pull a map out of it. There's not really a scenario in my mind where London loses unless this new meta is just a complete wash for them and they can't pull it off.
Yeah.
If they can't pull it off, they might struggle this entire stage, but we'll have to wait and see after this week. Yeah, I know not much more that needs to be said on this. I want you to talk to me about Justice and Eternal.
3-0. 3-0 Justice.
Okay, I was gonna say if you tell me Paris is gonna win this, I'm just.
Nah, man. So that's the thing. All right. So, like, for those new to the Spectator Diff family, I've been a Washington Justice fan since I started watching Overwatch League. And I like the Washington Justice because I like Washington football teams. And I like Washington because my family lives there. And so I am a diehard Washington Justice supporter, but I am an honest Justice supporter. And I will not lie to you about how bad they are at winning games. However, Washington Justice, really, really good against two types of teams. Teams that they should beat no problem. They can wipe easily. Teams that they have no business beating, like none zero business, in like the LA Gladiators. Every once in a while, they break one out. The teams they struggle against the most are teams that they should beat, or teams that there's a world where they could beat them. Because if there is a world where they could beat them, we are in the wrong multiverse and we will never see it, which is why they will never beat the Shock. And number two, teams that they should beat, they always lose against. Washington can wipe Paris. Paris is really bad. I just straight up, Paris sucks. And Washington could all go out and play 1v1v1v1v1 Overwatch, as they often do, and have zero synergy and run dive DPS with bunker tanks and a flex support meta, and they can beat Paris. And I think it's 3-0 Washington.
Cool. Good enough for me. Good enough for me. Rounding out that Saturday of games, we have the Outlaws and the Gladiators. Gladiators, I don't think there's any question, should win that. Houston.
Absolutely.
Houston, because it's early in the stage, Houston gets at least a map, I think.
Unless they drop their whole goddamn roster.
If they drop their whole roster, which there's no way. There's no way.
We keep saying it. Which means it's gonna happen.
It would be the ultimate Houston move, wouldn't it? But it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen right now. It might happen next stage.
Everybody from Munich and 01 is gonna go on strike, and then they're gonna get picked up by Houston. That's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be Munich and 01 esports versus the world under the guise of the Houston Outlaws. I don't really believe that. Nobody under the impression that I believe that. Let's move on to the next game.
Good enough. Shock versus Mayhem. Shock. I'm not even gonna give the Mayhem a map on this one. I think Shock are gonna sweep the crap out of them. I do.
I agree.
I especially this early on, like the Shock will dick around, but I don't think that Mayhem are gonna get a strong enough grasp on whatever meta shows up. If it's even that different, like there are certain maps that's not gonna be different. All of the escort maps and metas are gonna be the same. It's still gonna be that Sigma sniper kind of comp with Zen backline like that. That's gonna stay the same. That does not change. How Shock and Glad's pioneer the new Junker Queen meta is going to kind of give us an idea of where this stage is going to go, but it is going to be those teams that actually pioneer it, and we're going to see some. If we don't see GOATs exactly in the way that we saw it in Contenders, we're going to see something that's still very strong and kind of crazy, and simple, because Overwatch League tends to gravitate towards the most simple comp, which is what makes them different from Contenders, I feel. So we'll see. If we see Junker Queen meta at all, it's gonna be Shock and Glad that figure it out. And I don't think that Mayhem is gonna have a dog in that fight, especially this early on while everybody's still figuring it out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think especially if Shock drops a match to Washington, they're gonna take that anger out on Mayhem. So I don't have a lot of faith in Mayhem. And honestly, I feel the same way about this next game, like Dallas, New York. 3-0 Dallas.
Oh, hold on here. Hold on here.
Okay, Brad. Okay.
So hear me out. It was not long ago, albeit just a few weeks ago, that Fuel dropped 2 maps to New York, if you remember.
Yeah, fuck.
And then historically, Dallas has only beaten New York once.
Fuck, you're right.
So now
I still think 3-0 Dallas. I do. I do. I can't not. I'm huffing copium. I can't not put Dallas over New York. I can't do it, Brad. I can't.
I'm still gonna give it to Dallas. I just wanted to like toss that little tidbit of statistical fact.
What a stat that is.
Oh yeah, right. It feels bad. It feels bad to say. Feels bad to say. Feels bad to hear. Because I remember hearing it for the first time. I was like, that can't be right. And it's right. It's true. Ooh, do we see a repeat? Do we have any other 5-bangers this day? We don't. The Saturday, Sunday, no 5-bangers. I'm making a 5-banger. I don't care. It's not double points, but I'm calling it a 5-banger. I think they still drop 2 maps because I think the curse exists, and I think they drop the first 2 maps into reverse sweep again. Again? Nah, it's not gonna be a reverse sweep. It's gonna go to 5 maps, and it's just gonna be back and forth. I like that one better. I like that idea better.
So I'm looking at the game. It was July 3rd.
God, that long ago already. Shit.
Yeah, man. Dallas dropped 2 maps to New York. It was the second 2 maps. Yeah, and they are 1-5 against New York. Oh my God. There's no way, dude. There's no way. There's no way that Dallas loses to New York. And I don't even think that New York gets maps, but I also statistically New York should get maps.
I'll say it this much. If I'm going to call this now. If New York pulls this out, that's the game of the week that we talk about next week.
Absolutely.
I don't care.
Absolutely it is.
I don't care if it's a 3-0 for the Excelsior. We're talking about that match if they win. I don't care.
100%. 100%.
So that's that taken care of. I'm calling it 3-2. I feel good about that. I mean, I don't feel good about it, but I don't feel bad about it either. So like whatever. Rain and Defiant. That's actually gonna be that's a tough one too, because there's a world where
here's my upset of the week. Toronto beats Atlanta.
I'll go with that. Entirely.
Toronto beats Atlanta.
This is exactly the kind of match that Atlanta loses.
Exactly. This is the kind of match that Atlanta loses, and this is the kind of match that Toronto wins.
Yeah, this is exactly.
Toronto wins 3-2.
This would be so like I don't even know if I could call it an upset. I'd be also more inclined to call it an upset if Atlanta like wins. Like it's because this is exactly, especially like everything lines up. All of the stars and planets and astrological nonsense has aligned for Toronto to win this one, because Atlanta's so inconsistent. Your top 3 team, ladies and gentlemen, is so inconsistent that this is where they would absolutely lose.
Absolutely it is. This is like putting 2 glasses of skim milk on a table and asking me which one has more fat in it. These teams are the same. The only difference between these 2 teams is circumstance, and I think that the circumstances match Toronto better this weekend. Also Toronto has live games coming up. They're doing a homestand for Summer Showdown, and I think that that's going to give them a little extra motivation to try a little bit harder. And I still kind of think that Toronto could blank the Titans, and if they blank the Titans, they will beat Atlanta Reign.
Interesting. That is an interesting series of events. I think. Oh boy, how many maps do Atlanta? You know what? No, this would be a 5-banger. This has to, like, if Atlanta loses, this has to be a 5-banger, because they will lose in the most Atlanta way possible, which is they will drop the first map. Actually, they'll drop the first 2. They'll start to reverse sweep, and then the 5th map will be a stupid frickin' C9. Like again, like exactly Houston style. It'll be real silly.
Yeah, man. I mean, Atlanta has C9'd plenty of times. I want a gif of Nero saying touch point as he is ulting himself off point in that that Ilios game from a couple of weeks ago. I think Atlanta loses this game, just straight up. I think Atlanta loses this
you know
game.
what? Yeah. I'm calling it a 5-map banger. It ends on a C9. Ends on a C9 because that's Atlanta rain. That is your Atlanta rain in 2022. If you don't like it, too bad. This is not a democracy.
Yeah. So to wrap up our Preds here, the matches that we focused on this week that we'll touch back on for our official scores next week. We have London beating Florida, LA beating Dallas, San Francisco beating Washington, Toronto beating Vancouver, and Vancouver beating Paris. Bonus predictions: Boston and Atlanta both lose on a C9, and Decay deadlifts a map against San Francisco. Anything else you'd like to throw into predictions this week?
That's totally reasonable. I think there are probably, I know we predicted specifically 2 C9s. There's probably at least 1 or 2 more that we didn't touch upon. I would say likely most likely probably in the Dallas Excel game. And if we're being real, probably the Shock Justice game. There's one hidden in either one of those games, and one of them is specifically going to be egregious. Very silly. Tits to the wind on which one it's gonna be or who's gonna perform it, but I can feel it in my bones. It's gonna happen. I don't like it. Probably gonna be the Shock.
I'm not gonna write it down.
Don't write it down.
I refuse to manifest this.
Yeah, I'm not putting that in
Washington. I think that Washington C9s more maps than they win this weekend.
Ooh.
Yeah. I do think that. I straight up do think that. And that sucks. That sucks because I have them blanking Paris, but I still think they C9 more maps than they win this weekend.
Oh man.
Yeah, man. I do.
Good enough for me.
One of these days we'll do a whole podcast about how I would fix the Washington Justice, but that's a story for another day.
That'll be for a future Patreon.
Yeah, right? So that I can write skins off on my taxes. Today, though, that will do it for this episode of Spectator Diff. Again, please subscribe to us here on YouTube, or if you're listening to the audio of the show, which you will be able to by the end of this week. Subscribe on your podcast app of choice. You can follow me on socials at MC_DJ_MC.
And me on socials at LastCall_gaming.
And until next time, just remember, we're better at watching Overwatch than you.
Bye, everybody.